And I'm going to mute myself. All yours, Deborah.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. I am so excited to be here with you and share this message that was given to me. And when I get gifts from nature or anywhere, I love sharing them. So thank you. So I'm going to start by just giving you a little bit of background. Hi, Patricia, you made it. That's awesome. Just a little bit of background so you know where I was in the process when this happened. I was in a place in my life where everything was working, everything was coming together, and had been that way for a number of months. And I was working, we had opened up we created a new healing center, and I was doing healing sessions and teaching classes in it. I was in my element. I lived in what I thought was the most perfect apartment I could imagine, and everything was coming together. Then I met this guy, and it seemed like that was just the icing on the cake. Everything was going beautifully. From June to October, we just completely clicked. It was quite amazing. And then in October, he came to me and he said, I was in Maine at the time. He said, I don't hang out in Maine for the winters, and I'm heading to Florida. Please come play with me. And I couldn't leave because I loved what I was doing. My life was what I had always wanted it to be. And I said no. He got furious. We ended up breaking up and he left. And within half an hour after that, there was a knock on the door, and I opened it up, still crying from the first catastrophe. And it was my landlord handed me eviction papers saying, sorry, we're turning this into condos. You've got to be out of here in 30 days. And it just felt like the rug completely got pulled out from under me. And he left, and I cried for about 15 minutes and pulled myself together, and I said, that's not helping. What always helps me is going to the beach. So I got in my car and I drove to the beach, walked across the beach to the water. And the first thing that I see as I'm standing on the beach is something that I had never before seen in my life after spending hours and hours, thousands of hours on the beach, because it's always been my place of solace. So I'm standing on the beach and I see this seagull who is wobbling all over the place. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what is that all about? I've never seen that happen. And feeling like the rug had been pulled out from under my feet as well, I could totally relate to that seagull. And as I'm watching it, it's just bouncing back and forth, and it looks like it's struggling just to stand up. And I couldn't figure it out, but I just thought, well, I know what that feels like, and I'm just gonna do my walk. So I took a couple of steps, and there's another seagull standing there doing exactly the same thing. And I looked at it, kind of chuckled to myself, thinking, all right, this is interesting. And then I saw another one and another one. And so I'm standing before these 4 seagulls just doing this dance that I have never seen before and don't understand. And something in me said, just stop and watch. So I did. And I'm standing there watching these 4 seagulls do this dance. And it's not making any sense to me. It's like, that's not what seagulls do. They know how to be on the beach. And so the more I looked and the deeper I looked into what I could see is happening, I could see that there was no struggle. This is intentional. And the seagulls, as the water came up and washed the grains of sand away, the seagulls are using the energy and the momentum of the energy that is around them to dig deeper. So as the water is washing the waves, as the water is washing the sand away, they are using that momentum to dig while the sand is being washed away so that they can get to what nourishes them. And as I realized that, I'm like, They're amazing. They are ingenious. This is beautiful. And I looked around and I could feel the energy at the ocean, the energy of my environment where I'm standing. And there is a tremendous amount of energy there. And there was this wave that was washing me and trying to knock me off my feet. And in the moment that I realized that there was no struggle for the seagulls to dig deeper and find what nourishes them, I instantly knew that that is exactly what the message that I was being given. There is no struggle. The wave is here to support. The momentum of the energy that is here is only a struggle if we resist, when we resist. And I was definitely resisting. This isn't something that I asked for. I thought for the first time, my life is exactly what I want it to be. I don't want it to change. And yet it changed. All of that happened within half an hour, the morning that led me to go to the beach. It all came as a tsunami. And before I left to go to the beach, I'm just in my tears. I'm thinking, I felt like, I don't know if all of you have seen the Gone with the Wind, but I felt like Scarlett saying, where shall I go? What shall I do? And there was nobody there to even say, I don't give a damn. But so as I'm standing on the beach, it all just left. And I know now that this is an opportunity for me. This is an opportunity for me to dig deeper, to find what nourishes me, and to move forward with confidence, knowing that I am stable and that the universe is working with me to make the changes in my life that are needed. So it was a huge eye-opening moment. And the reason that this is the story that came to me to share with you all today is because we are living in a tsunami moment. There's so much energy. We all feel it. We all know that it's here. And so in the moment where we recognize that there is a wave of energy, and we know that we can harness that energy to use it for the greatest good, that is a game changer. In that moment, there was no more fear about what was going to happen in the future, in my future, without a place to live and everything changing. It all worked out perfectly. It was all part of a process that lifted me to another level of awareness so that I could take my life to an even higher level. And no matter what happens, we can always see the momentum of that energy in a way that we can use to support us, to break through a seeming limitation and move into a place of more potentiality, of greater potential than ever before. So I know that the story itself is relatively short, and I would really love to hear from you and see how you see that relevant in your world right now, because we're all having our own experience of the energy that is present for us right now. And I know that there is a lot of struggle going on for many, many people. So when we believe that something is difficult, when we believe that something is not good, there is an automatic response that says, oh, we don't want this, we have to resist this. And that allows for a breakdown without a breakthrough. When the moment we stop resisting, we can go from breakdown, which is part of the process, and we all know that, but we can move into the breakthrough. So how do we not resist what we don't want to happen? That's a huge question for humans. Animals don't have that. They just kind of go with the flow. And And that's another lesson that we can each learn, because how do you go with the flow when it feels like it's a tsunami that could consume you? So those are the questions that I would like to put out, and I'm happy to share more in depth with this. And I'd like to hear from you. I don't want to wait till it's time to go to start asking questions, because this is such a juicy topic. And you are the content, the context, which is you, creates the content for our dialogue here. So does anyone want to share anything about what I've said so far and how that might relate to your life? Just what it feels like. I mean, what it feels like to be standing with a tsunami, knowing that the wave is coming and it could very well wash out where you are in that moment. It could take you. Yeah, I would love to hear from you, Jim.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Okay, one thing I've learned a long time ago is you have to listen to those things. And yes, it may be a tsunami and it may knock you right off your feet. It may swamp you, like happened to you, but you came back on your feet. The problem is not the problem, but one of the issues here is if you do not listen, the wave gets higher. And there's many times Spirit has told me to do things when I was younger, and I fought it because, oh man, I'm comfortable right here. I'm not going to be doing that. Even sometimes not that long ago that I fought it and didn't do it, and boy, sure wished I'd had a while later, because something else came that was even more of a huge wave. So I guess that's the balancing piece. Sometimes we will be made uncomfortable when we do things. As humans, most of us are not welcoming of change, but sometimes change is a very good thing.
Absolutely. And this is kind of the result of the way it turned out, is that I went into meditation to dig deeper, to find out what nourishes me. And what I got was very interesting, because that was at that time, that was the second healing center I had collaboratively worked with. And what I was told was, okay, on one hand, you have this. You know how to create a healing center. You know how to do a healing practice. You know how to teach classes. You can do that anytime you want to. That's who you are. You've got that. On this hand, who would you be if you left all of that, had no identity, and just went out into the world with no identity and just became present with whatever showed up? And I have to say that invitation was really intriguing to me. And what I ended up doing, and it felt absolutely right, was giving my notice at the healing center that I helped birth, and saying goodbye to all of my clients, giving away everything that I owned, and hopping on a motorhome and living in nature for 3 years. And it was the best choice I could have made. So it was a huge, I mean, that tsunami, my resistance to not doing the next best thing for me, because what I was doing was so comfortable, was what created that tsunami in the first place. The universe is saying, no, you did this, you've got this, you know this. Now it's time for something else. And as difficult as it seems like that can be, especially when we're so comfortable and feeling like we're in our element, it was a huge shift for me. And as it turns out, the day that I had to be out of my apartment was my daughter's move-in day to her apartment. She had just graduated from college. She moved into a new apartment in Portland, Maine, where I was living at the time, just down the street. And we loaded up everything in my apartment because she had nothing. She had no furniture, no dishes, no pans, nothing. Moved everything from my apartment to her apartment. It was done. I gave her everything. And I walked away with a few crystals and a few clothes, and everything else I gave away. So all's well that ends well, you know. It's never ended. It's still in continuation, and I have become more aware when I feel resistance that the job isn't to necessarily resist. The job is to sit with my resistance and explore it, to discover what that resistance is really all about. And when I understand why I'm resisting, that informs me of how to move forward in the next right step for me, for my soul purpose, for the evolution of my whole being, not just my physical being. So that's how that process evolved, and it's, like I said, it's still in process. So absolutely, it's trusting every emotion that we feel in the process. I have this picture in my mind of the seagulls using the momentum of the energy around them to dig deeper, and that becomes a reminder for me to say, okay, I need to dig a little deeper here. There is seemingly a bottomless pit inside every one of us where we can dig and dig and dig and always have more digging to do to take things to the next level. And each one, I've never regretted doing that. It's always been a gift, even though I may have done a little kicking and screaming in the process. And after that, Patricia is well aware of this. After that, I started a spiritual retreat center. When I was done on my, what I call my 3-year sabbatical of being, living in nature for 3 years, I knew that it was time to move forward again. And so I started, co-created with another person, a spiritual healing center that was a retreat center where people came and we worked together to support their spiritual growth. And yeah, Patricia was she was almost a partner in that process, because she helped bring people to receive the work there. And so it's all an evolution, and the universe was right. Once we know something, we know how to do it, we never not know that again. And we can always, that's a tool that's in our toolbox that we can pull out anytime it's needed. But continually, I mean, consciousness, the purpose of consciousness is to continually expand. We are consciousness. So what is the next step for our expansion? And sometimes that looks like leaving everything from where we've been. It looks like leaving all of that behind, like it did with me in that particular case. And I've started over completely 5 times in my life from scratch. And each time I learned something, I expanded my own consciousness, who I am, what my relationship to myself, my relationship to the world, and my relationship to my purpose. Yeah, it's very intriguing, fascinating actually, to hold our own hand and walk ourselves through what life shows us, what life brings to us, what life wants us to respond to. And it is our response to whatever happens that determines the outcome. I mean, if I had continued to resist, everything that I was clinging on to so tightly would have crumbled anyway, because it wasn't meant for me to stay there. I was meant to be an instrumental part of the creation. And once it was created, it was time to move on. And I didn't want to hear that initially. But once I did move on, I understood why. So the momentum of the energy that's happening now is another invitation for that very thing. What is it that we must leave behind? And what is it that we are moving toward? And what is it, more importantly, that we choose to move toward? And so that may be the conversation for today is, what do we choose to move toward? And I know that if you're here, you have a vision of that. And what is necessary to leave behind in order for that vision to fulfill itself. Any thoughts on that anyone would like to share? So one way that I work with that is figuring out, okay, what's next is going with the question of what's missing. I was given an equation. Some of you will know this equation, but I was given an equation years back. And the moment this equation came in, I knew that, I remembered, I should say, from high school algebra, that every equation has to have at least one given. It has to have at least one variable. And that what you do to one side of the equation, you must also do to the other side of the equation in order for the equation to be true and balanced. So it's like, okay, I get it. So the equation that I was given is S plus R equals O. S is the situation. That's the given. What we're finding in this world right now is the given. The universe is handing us this frequency and saying, show me who you are in this frequency, when this frequency shows up. And plus R is the variable. That is our response to the situation. So the variable as our response is the only variable in this equation. Equals O is the outcome. So we have tremendous power within us to choose responses that create the outcome that we want. And so when I look at what's missing in this equation, what's missing in this equation here is a deeper understanding of who we really are. If we knew who we really are as spiritual beings having a physical experience, if we knew who we are as pure light and pure love in the essence that we were gifted as human beings, none of this struggle would be happening. So what's missing is a deep understanding within ourselves. If as each of us come into remembrance, to remember who we are, to remember what we're here for, to remember the original agreement that humanity made to Mother Earth, to care for her, to care for all life, and to perpetuate and enhance life as we know it. If we remembered that, this world would be very different. And so the invitation now, as I see it, and this is just my perspective, but that's the only one I have right now. The invitation is to remember who we are and to fully embrace that in every choice that we make. And it's a process. There is resistance to giving ourselves that much power. And I've talked about this. I'm teaching a class on universal laws, and I've talked about that. It's like many of us growing up came to believe that anger and control were more powerful than love. And that appears to be true in many, many situations that I've witnessed, that I've been immersed in. And so it's easy to kind of default to, well, control is the only way. Anger is more powerful because it gets things done. And love doesn't quite get there. But that is all part of the illusion that we're breaking through right now. And so remembering that love is love with gratitude. Love is here, gratitude is here. When you bring those two together with understanding and compassion, there is nothing more powerful than that. And when we come together as passionate about the goodness that we can evoke from within ourselves to support life on this planet, when we're as passionate about that as those who have a different agenda, there will be more balance here. Any thoughts? Or I just want to make sure that anyone who wants to say anything, I haven't noticed anyone in the chat either, but I just want to make sure that anyone who wants to speak and share has the opportunity. So I'm just taking breaks to check in and see. Yeah, Jim?
Okay, I'll speak again then.
Thank you.
This is very good. Remembering, yes, in the many of the prophecies from around the globe, we're in the middle of the time now that those prophecies talked about. And a lot of that is about remembering, because we have a big choice. We will either survive or we will perish as a species. One reason we're turning to a lot of indigenous people is because many of them still remember. They're still connected to the earth. And to the young people, because they're willing to hear it and change their behaviors and create a new way. So I think those things are critical. I think more and more of us are listening. I mean, I've been listening to my elders for longer than I want to remember. So I'm glad this time is here. It's painful. We have a lot of those out there, as you say, who are practicing hate and control, but they are losing. We're already seeing that start to swing, and they will lose more because it's not sustainable. We have to be sustainable now, and that doesn't cut it. They're stuck in the old paradigm of I will do, I need, it's about me, and that cannot work. Conferences like this, groups like ours, this is all about we. You're telling the stories, you're asking the questions, but you're part of the circle, and that's the way it's supposed to work. So we share, and we learn, and we let the love sink in, because the love part, love and caring, take longer. They act slower, and so sometimes it seems like, are we ever going to get there? But in fact, it's more sustainable. You're building from a solid base and not on a foundation that's going to crumble. So thanks for that teaching. It's really important.
Oh, yeah. And thank you for bringing that up, because when we witness hatred or when we witness darkness, the tendency tends to be to get angry because we're seeing what we don't want. And it's critical that we all get that when we do that, we are adding to the darkness. We are adding actually to the hatred. By fighting hatred, what you focus on, you get more of. And so with this equation, S plus R equals O, and we look for what is missing. What is missing when hatred is present? Love. Love is, I mean, hatred is only the inability to perceive love in a given moment. The moment we perceive love, the moment we move into a response that is coming from a loving place within ourselves, we change the equation and it shifts immediately. It can't not shift when we do that. So everything, if we see everything that's happening right now as an invitation to bring in through our own being, through our own consciousness, what is missing, then we will see the results that we're wanting. I mean, all of us are like, how long do we have to drag this out? How long is it going to take? Well, the universe tells me it's going to take as long as it takes for everyone to shift to positivity. That's what is needed here. We cannot resist what we don't want and expect it to change in a positive way. It just doesn't work that way. That's not how energy works. That's not what this time is all about. It's not about becoming warriors again. It's about becoming ourselves. It's about remembering who we are and always responding with love, as love. That is the alchemy. Love is the alchemy that changes any metal to gold. We have the power of that medicine in us. We were born with it. Excuse me. It is being activated in us at this point in time for a reason, because this is the time that we use that medicine to heal Mother Earth, to heal each other, to support each other in opening to remembering who we are by seeing each other as pure light, as pure love. If any of you have ever had somebody else look into your eyes and see you in your truth for who you really are and who you know yourself to be, but who you know yourself to be has never been validated except for this one person who looked at you and saw you. I mean, there's a melting that happens when that happens. It can bring us to tears. It can bring us to a place that we never knew we could go. We are here to love each other as ourselves. Part of the problem with that statement is that most people don't love themselves. So in order to give love, we have to have love within our being to give. And I know so many people, and I've done it myself, who try to just give and give and give and give and give until we're empty. And then we still try to give and give and give and give and give. And it's not as effective. We're not here to be martyrs. We're not here to be warriors. We're here to be who we are meant to be. And it takes courage to go there, because who we are meant to be has not been honored in our culture. It's like, love takes too long. If I can't go there, I'm going to do it faster. And that spiritual bypass that happens when we try to fight against what we don't want, it is a spiritual bypass, because what is really required is going in and saying, yes, I do remember. I remember when humanity as consciousness made the commitment to honor life, to honor all life, to understand that we are a part of the web of life, and that the water still remembers. As contaminated as many of the waters on this planet are, the memory of its purity is still there. That's what water restructuring is all about. It reminds water that it is still pure. We, as 75 to 80% water, still have the memory of our own purity, of our own innocence. And against what most people have believed, innocence and purity can never be destroyed. It may be pushed aside because it doesn't feel safe to be in our innocent, pure state, but it can never be destroyed. So as we give ourselves permission for each other, for ourselves and for each other, to see each other's purity, that memory awakens in us. And it's a it just multiplies exponentially. I've seen it in a classroom. I used to teach in a classroom with high school students, and I see one light go off, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 the lights are going off in everyone in the class. And that was my favorite part of teaching. It wasn't what I taught necessarily, it's just watching those lights go. It's beautiful. We can do that for each other. We're meant to be that for each other. And how do we do that? How do we stay in our knowing when there's no validation of that knowing around us? Faith goes a long way. Faith in ourselves. How many times have each of you gotten an intuitive hit about something and you ignored it? And afterwards you were like, oh man, if I'd only listened. I'm sure. I mean, I've said it. And then when I do listen, there was one time in that apartment that I love so much in Portland, Maine, I was going to an appointment. I was late, which is unfortunately rather typical of who I was at that point in time. But I was late and I was ready to close the door to go out and get in my car and go to this appointment that I was already late for. And I heard a voice say, don't close the door. And literally I said, what? I'm late. I'm already late. I gotta go. And there was this energy that was not letting me close the door. And so I said, okay. And I opened up the door and my keys were on the counter still. I thought they were in my handbag. If I had closed the door, I not only would have not been able to get into my house, but I wouldn't have been able to get in to turn my car on and go to my appointment. So I was like, okay, thank you. It's very humbling when we question the universe's wisdom that comes through us. And, it's like, all right, I get it. So remembering those times when you did listen and it worked out beautifully, and the times that you didn't listen, and there was a lesson to learn in it, there was an outcome, a perceived outcome that was not seemingly ideal. All the times that I didn't listen is what taught me how to listen. So there's no mistakes. Whatever we choose because it's what we need to know. And not listening enough times to finally listen woke me up in a number of different ways. So not beating ourselves up, being willing to love ourselves and love our imperfections, seeming imperfections, until we remember the perfection of who we are. Because the imperfections are only our experience because of our forgetting. The moment we remember, those imperfections are insignificant. They're unique aspects of who we are. And in some cases, those imperfections are coming from a false belief about ourselves and our relationship to each other, to our world. They're just coming from a misunderstanding from, in some cases, from childhood. And I'm going to stop again and just check in, see if there's anyone that would like to share anything or ask a question, whatever. I would love to hear from you. Okay, so, okay, thank you, Jim.
Looks like I'm designated talker for this one. I'm okay with that.
That works.
Yeah, it works. Other times I'm designated listener, so it balances. I was just thinking of it's a short story, but demonstrating when you don't listen, if I can tell it.
Yes, I would love that.
And I've spent a long, long time walking the spiritual road, 45 years now, I guess. So I've learned a lot of these things the hard way, being stubborn, human, and male. 3 strikes. So I've learned pretty well when I am to move when Creator wants me to move, or the ancestors say, get out of there to go do this. I usually listen pretty well. But it just 6 years ago now, maybe, we were living in Colorado. We were northern end of Colorado, near Fort Collins, but we were up on top of a mountain. Beautiful location. You had to drive about 5 miles up the mountain out of a canyon. And then we had a little house that we were renting, and it was surrounded every morning by several hundred elk. So it was glorious. We loved it. But it was clear. I kept getting the message: you need to move down below now because you've got more work you have to do down there. And I'm like, okay, but we don't want to. Well, I was looking down below, kind of looking, but not very strategically or in a very organized fashion. So it was getting to the point, oh, what are we going to do? Are we going to sign a lease again for another year? Or are we supposed to listen? I'll find something down there. I kept playing the game. I can't really find anything. And while we were sitting there trying to figure that out, we woke up one morning to a bunch of noise, and we turned on the TV, and here this flood had hit. So this was a big flood in Colorado about 6 years ago, and we were above this canyon um, that a river coursed through, and there was the water just coming up and up. Talk about a tsunami. That's what it looked like. Our road was already gone. We couldn't get up the mountain. As we watched, there were people a little lower down who were filming this on their phones or cameras, I suppose. And we went, wow, look at that, hauling those things off. And what is that pack of metal there? Oh dear, that's our RV that was parked next to the river as it was crashing down the canyon and being broken into pieces. And then in a little while, we heard helicopters. And so we went to see what was going on, only to find out we had 15 minutes to gather what we could, and then we were going off in the helicopters, or we'd be stuck up there for months. And maybe they could drop food and water periodically. So it was such a great reminder. I can pretty well promise you for the rest of my life this time, I will pay total attention when I get the word to move or to stay, for that matter. It can work either way. But it is that kind of thing. And I think possibly because I had been doing this for so long that the ancestors thought I should know when they say something, I should be doing it. So maybe I got an extra hard kick. I don't know. But it did cause us to move. We ended up in a place even nicer up another river on the north side of town just a couple months later. So thanks. There it is, though. There it is. Listen or don't listen.
Thank you for sharing that. And water has a way of teaching us. It shows up. It just does. That reminds me of, I don't know if you remember the big tsunami that hit Indonesia and parts of India in 2003. I watched the videos of that, and I read a number of accounts from that, from people's experiences. And there were over 200,000 people who died in that. And what I also read surprised me, and this is actually a little preview for those of you who are in the Universal Laws class, because I'm talking about this in the next class on Saturday. But what happened in that is that 200,000 people died in this wave of devastation and human destruction and material destruction, and not one animal was found dead in the wake of all of that. And I was just so amazed by that, because all of the technology, all of the instruments that are available to determine the weather and create safety and predict what nature is going to do didn't predict this. But the animals who are still connected, who still remember that we're all one, felt the signs from Mother Earth. And they moved to higher ground, which saved every single animal. Even the domesticated animals knew how to do that. We have most of humanity has lost that deep connection to Mother Earth. And we don't have that means of communication that is reciprocal. It's meant to be reciprocal. Communication isn't communication if it's not reciprocal. There has to be listening and sharing. I'm so sorry. So that was very eye-opening. It was a message to humanity. If your machines will not save you. Your machines are not the answer. Remembrance is the answer. Reconnecting to nature, reconnecting to Mother Earth, and appreciating the fact that we do have a connection and a way of communicating. I mean, I've been called crazy lots of times for talking to trees and stones and crystals and um, but I wouldn't not do it because it's the way we're built. We are one species on a planet of many, many species, many less, unfortunately, than there used to be. But nonetheless, we are one species among many. And there is absolutely a possibility, an intention, a design, if you will, for all of us to communicate together. And getting that back, spending more time. I mean, with this rebooting that is happening, the intention of this rebooting is not to get on the other side of this virus and then go back to normal. I hope one of my biggest prayers is that we will not go back to what was normal before all of this. There is a possibility, an invitation, as I said before, for transformation, transmutation, and a breakthrough that the likes of which humanity has never seen. And the universe is holding space for us to make that breakthrough. So we've talked about some of the ways that we can do that. And it each starts because we are all one, because when we heal, Mother Earth heals. When we heal, we change the frequency of the energy all around us. And there is the Mother Earth absorbs frequencies. One of my trips to Florida in the motorhome, when I was doing the hiking and my 3-year sabbatical, we hadn't done it before, but we took Route 81, I think it is, through the Blue Mountains and got to Florida. But while we were driving through the Blue Mountains, uncontrollably, I just, out of the steaming blue, started sobbing. And I sobbed my heart out for almost 3 hours. Absolutely no control, no understanding of what triggered it. I just sobbed for 3 hours, and then boom, it was done. And when we got to Florida, we were talking to people. We had just arrived, and they said, "What route did you take?" And we told them. And I mentioned that I just started crying uncontrollably, sobbing for 3 hours. And they said, "Oh." And we pinned it down to the time that was happening to me, we were driving on the Trail of Tears. That energy was still in the earth. And I did some work to clear that, and just from being aware that, oh my God, I felt it viscerally. Every cell in my body was wailing the whole time we were on that land. So we have some cleanup to do. And we start that cleanup process by working on ourselves first. And the good news is that life will continually show us where our cleanup needs to happen. There is wreckage, there is contamination everywhere we look. And because 99.999% of what is true, what is real, is unseen, the good news is that the unseen 99+% is still pure. Love exists infinitely everywhere. Whether we can feel it, whether we can see it or not, it's there. And we can tap into that. That's part of the momentum of the energy that's around us that we can tap into to use for the benefit of life and for our highest good. So trusting and faith is important. What we have faith in matters. Trusting that the unseen world is so much, and of which we are a part, I should add, the unseen world of which we are a part, because 99% plus of ourselves is spirit. So that's part of who we are. But when we tap into that unified field that is infinite and everywhere, no matter where we are, no matter what frame of mind we're in, that infinite pure field is there for us. And when we can shift our attention from what isn't working to that unified field of pure potentiality, we can call in the energy that we need to find what's missing in ourselves in that moment. And then we can take what we have filled ourselves with and radiate that out to the world and share that with the people around us, with our environment. And again, that is what will shift. It's a relatively simple way when so many of us our whole adult lives have been activists and fighting and trying to change the world. It clearly hasn't been that successful. It has shifted some people's awareness. It has done some good, but it cannot accomplish what we want it to accomplish. So we've got to find a different strategy. And that different strategy is healing ourselves, loving ourselves, calling in from the universe, from the unified field, all that is needed, all that is missing from the equation that we are witnessing in any given moment, and supplying that missing piece with our own intention, our own focus, our own breath, our own beingness. And we can do that. And we never have to be upset when we see something that we don't like ever again, because it's like, yes, I can do more. I can do this. I can add love to this situation. It's empowering. It's encouraging. It allows us to reclaim our sovereignty. Our sovereignty has taken a back seat for too long. We are sovereign beings of light and love. Nothing changes that, but we can forget. And we do forget. And when we're here to remind each other in forums like this, where thank you so much, Jim, for setting this up and for creating this moment in time where we can be here to support each other. Yeah, it's beautiful. So another check-in. We're we're almost done here. But any final comments or questions or sharings that anyone wants to offer before we do close? Well, I can do a closing for our time together, if that's okay. All right. So I invite you to breathe into your heart space. Open yourself. Give your heart permission to open to the next level, to receive gratitude from you for continuing to beat, continuing to support you in your aliveness, continuing to feed your life force all that is needed to support you in ultimately remembering and contributing exactly what you came here to contribute. Remember that you are the medicine that you have struggled with your whole life. Our most difficult lessons in life have become the medicine and the strength that will allow each of us to fulfill our purpose here. And we have to claim that medicine And we have to offer that medicine in order for it to be effective. Breathe in the love of all that is, the love of Source, the love that exists infinitely within the unified field. And breathe it into the spaces between the subatomic particles within your own unified field inside you, which is the unified field, because there is no mine, yours, it's ours. This is our unified field to do with as we will. This field of infinite, pure potentiality is ours to use, to offer, to share, and to enjoy. I invite you to call in the words in this moment that will be your reminder for yourself to tap into this infinite unified field within you and around you, to call on what you need in any given moment. What words will help you remember that this is available to you in every moment? And I'm just going to be still for a moment to allow the silence to speak with you and share. May you each remember fully and live the sovereign being that you came here to be. It's no mistake that you're here now at this time. So thank you for being here. Thank you for participating in this and in the bigger picture of all that is. What you contribute to the web of life matters. Thank you, thank you. Blessed be. And so it is. Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here, every one of you.
Thank you, Deborah. Excellent. And everybody.
Have a wonderful day.
Aho.
Aho.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you.